Hello, welcome back to the Janome YouTube channel. My name is Michael, and today I'm going to be taking you through a step-by-step process of how I recreated the Princess Leia dress from Star Wars A New Hope worn by Carrie Fisher. This is a dress I've wanted to make for a long time. I've had the fabric in reserve for many years, and we always said that this was something we were going to do, and it was pretty much a weekend project. It was something I was like, I'm just going to start to finish in a weekend. You'll see in the video I didn't quite make it in one whole weekend. The belt was a little difficult, but we'll see that all of this was made on my Janome Continental M8, so just one machine was used to make all of this, and then I used a resin printer for a bit of the belt. So I hope you enjoy this tutorial, and thanks for watching. Laying out the whole pattern, this is from Julie Chantal. We'll link the Etsy store in the description. But laying everything out, taping the pattern together is probably the most tedious part of having to get a pattern online, but I find that they're a lot more helpful because this is solid paper and not flimsy tissue. And so we'll just be taping them together, laying everything out so I don't have to like actually tape everything together. Like, that's a useless page, we'll just throw that away, and get to cutting. So according to the measurements, Haley will be a small, and so I'm going to cut out the pattern along the small line, which I believe is this second blue line. Nope, I was wrong. It is the kind of maroon line that is the seam allowance. All right, so the pattern is cut out and ready to go. And so thinking about our materials, the original costume was made of crepe de chine, and we don't have that. We have this 4-way stretch white stuff that we have a massive roll of that we've had for years and years and years and years, because we're like, we're gonna make a Leia costume and we're gonna use this. So we've had this forever. And I'm so glad to finally be using it because I want it out of the sewing room. It takes up so much space. Her belt is made of white leather, and so we have a white vinyl that we're going to be using, and it comes pre-weathered. And again, we've had this for years and years and years. I'm so excited to finally use it. And then I have my resin printed belt parts. They were included with this pattern, the STL files, and so we'll be painting those silver and gluing them onto the belt. I've also learned that the dress is self-lined, so that means that we'll be cutting out the top of the dress and the skirt several times to self-line. The hood is actually not self-lined. It is a single layer, and it has an opening in the back. So there are pictures where the hood is open down the back, so that it's also so the dress can open. There's hook and eyes on the back of the collar. The hood comes down, and then there's a keyhole opening here so that she can get the dress on and off. But the hood has like a big opening in the back. So I think that'll figure itself out as I'm working. So let's get cutting. The headphones are like my cinnamon buns.
Leia. Wow, Princess Leia.
Okay, cutting is done. Very much recommend sharp scissors. That make such a difference. These are so much cosplay scissors from Famore Cutlery, and Famore Cutlery does free sharpening services forever. So you have to pay shipping, but you send them off to their factory and they will sharpen them for you and send them back. I've done this probably 4 or 5 times since I've owned these scissors, and they just keep coming back brand shiny new, and I love them. Time to start sewing. Fortunately, this pattern comes with lots of instructions, so I'll be following that as I go, sewing on my Janome Continental M8. And since this isn't like a skin tight thing, I think I'm just going to use a straight stitch. I know that usually you use a zigzag stitch for stretch fabrics, but it doesn't need to stretch. I think the seams are just going to be fine. So I'm just going to start stitching and see how that goes. Now to repeat that whole process on the lining. And I know that Leia's dress was, I think, made like a T, like it's all one piece, but I'm actually happy that the pattern is like this because my fabric like isn't long enough or wide enough to have made all of that in one piece. So it's gonna all be covered up by the belt anyway, so it's all good. Oh, and I just noticed something. I didn't think this fabric had a right or wrong side. I thought it was the same, but hopefully the camera can show it. Like, you really don't see much texture at all on that side, but on this side, oh, can the camera show it? Like, you see the lines there? You really don't see those ridges and lines as much on this. So I'm glad I picked this side as the right side, because and now I need to be really consistent. Make sure that I'm picking kind of the smoother side versus the more kind of ribbed side. You can see it there. The more ribbed side is now going to be the wrong side of the fabric. Created the notch in the back of the dress along the neckline, pitting the right sides together of the lining and the dress, and then sewing around that. And then I added an understitch to the lining so that the outside will look nice and flat, and the seam allowance will stay on the inside and not roll out. Wow, that sleeve was a trust the process. So you have to turn the whole thing inside out, both sides out, like seam allowance is facing out. Pin the sleeve holes together, right sides together, and sew all the way around, and then turn it outside, like right sides out, and then do an understitch. And it worked, but it was very confusing, but it did work. So I got it all right. So that side looks good. One more sleeve to go. And then my instinct was I should probably stay stitch the neckline to keep it in place. And then the next instruction was stitch the neckline to keep it in place. So I did exactly what I was supposed to do. All right, there's the top. The top is finished. We got sleeves. We got finished sleeves. Everything's looking very Leia-y. And yeah, this is going really well. Day 2, let's go. So even though I have this great big box of interfacing, I am kind of Frankensteining, because this is all I have left of my mid-weight feasible interfacing. So I'm going to try to get the coverage I need with these scraps to cover both sides of the collar. So around the edges, clip the corners, snip the curves, add understitching to the inside of the collar. And I use this little tool for points. I think it's originally maybe for books. I don't really know. Got off Amazon. But I use this because some people use like their scissors or knitting needles or pencils or something, and you ended up like poking through. And this has a nice rounded edge, so I can get a nice sharp point on things. And pressing. All right, so now it's hood time. So I just had to walk through the steps about 5 times to make sure that I understood them. So super long hood. I know it doesn't look like a hood, but it's going to. Haley's here. Hi, Haley's playing Sims. So we stitch along the top, we stitch along the bottom, and then we turn it all inside out and kind of do a French seam, or like a top stitch, kind of sealing all of that in and making it nice and flat. Then we're going to gather along both of these ends, do some big gather stitches and crunch all of those up, and then attach it to the back of the dress. So it's going to be 2 big old chunky gathers hanging down here. And then the back of the hood is open. We can see that in some reference images, and it's also how she gets the dress on and off, because it only closes at the collar. So of course the hood couldn't be closed in the back because she needs all of this to get it on and off. So detail I'd never noticed before, but it is accounted for here, and that's what we're going to do. Stitched around the edges, and then turn it inside out, and now I'm stitching very close to the seam turned inside out to add a top stitch to keep everything nice and secure from the top. And I'm going to do 2 lines of gather stitches with the widest stitch on my machine. I've probably shown my yarn gathering technique for gathers before, which I use on skirts and bigger pieces, but I think because this is so fiddly and because it has to connect to such a small space, I don't want the yarn creating bulk. So I'm going to do the traditional 2 lines of thread and see how that goes. Leaving a long tail at the end so that I can pull the threads for the gathers. And then tightly holding on to the top threads here, not the bottom ones, just the top ones. We're going to gently tug so that we don't tear the gather thread, because that's annoying, because then you have to start all over again. But just slowly pushing everything down gently and carefully so the threads don't snap. It's also probably a good idea to tie off the back threads again along the top so that they don't accidentally come loose or come out, because then you have to start all over again. Gathering is kind of tedious, but hopefully we can make it work here. And there we have 2 lovely gathers. Pinned the cape to the back of the top. Hood stitched onto the back of the neckline. Okay, the collar is on. I didn't really show the process because I accidentally put it on backwards. So I had the understitch side facing out, and that's what happens when you right sides together, inside out, turn it around, flip it around, up, down, down, and that's how you do it. So it's fixed now. It was a lot of work, but we fixed it. We have sewn by hand the inside of the collar, and so that pretty much means the top is done. We stay stitched the bottom, and it's gonna be ready to put on the skirt next. All right, I went to the gym, worked out, got my smoothie bowl, went to Walmart, got my elastic. Now it's time to finish up the dress and do the skirt. The dress does have a slit up this side, so you really don't have to sew that much. So there's 2 panels for the front and back of the dress, and then 2 panels for the front and back of the lining. You get those together, and then we make the little V notches for the slit up the side, and that should go really quickly. Pinning the side slits together, right sides together, and then sewing all the way around those. Understitching the seam allowance to the inside of the lining on the slits. And there's the slits finished, and that's the skirt finished. Now the top pinned to the skirt, right sides together, so turn the top inside out, pinned around there, making a very narrow seam because we're going to make a little pocket for the elastic, and so we want to get very close so we don't lose too much of the dress in the middle. Time to add the elastic in. I am using one that's about twice as wide as she recommends. I did not read, but we're going to create a casing, so that's going to be a line all the way around with like a little gap on one side so that we can slide it along on the inside, and then we'll hand sew that up. We're also going to sew the 2 ends of the elastic together on the inside of the dress so that they don't come out. To insert the elastic, I have this fun little plastic tool. I have no idea where I got it, but I use this to thread into the little hole in the back of the dress that I created going all the way around, and then I'm going to sew the elastic closed right here in the front. Nope, this is the back. Hemming by hand while watching Survivor. That's what we're doing now. Almost done with the dress. Got the hooks in. And of course, my sewing label. All right, we're doing our first real fitting with the dress finished. Haley is looking amazing with the hood and everything. Looks great. The belt obviously isn't finished yet. Got to 3D print some more parts for that. With our first wear test, I am noticing that the hooks are not working. Just the way that it's sitting on her neck. Like this one is holding, but this one, yeah, they're not even staying on. So we're gonna replace those with snaps because snaps snap and hooks are hooking. Hey, Bobo. But yay! One weekend project done. We did it. Yay! So the snaps I'd previously used were not working for me. So I got this tape that's used for bras. These eyes over here, and I hand sewed some hooks over here, and it's working much better. So now we have a nice tight hold there, and the hood will mostly cover it up anyway, but I definitely wanted it's not perfect, but it's gonna work just fine. And the last step will be attaching the belt pieces to the belt using some super glue. And here we have the finished dress. So happy with how this whole project came together. The dress, the belt, all of it looking just like it did in the movie, in my opinion. I love that it is self-lined, it's a lot less work, no fancy finishes on the inside. The hood came together well as the clasps on the back. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful, and maybe it will inspire you to create your own Princess Leia dress for Halloween or cosplay or conventions or whatever else. You can find the pattern from Julie Chantal. Her tag is linked below. You can follow me at the Wizard Tailor on Instagram and TikTok, and I hope to see you there. See you next time. Bye.